Hey everybody, welcome back to the Caitlin Dunbar Nature Center. I'm BoxTurtle, and today we're going to talk about ants. I know the picture that you get in your head when you talk about ants. They're all over your house right now. I know they're all over mine. There's little tiny black ants that come in all year long that I can never seem to get rid of. But environmentally, ants are super duper important. In fact, they make up 15 to 20% of the terrestrial biomass of the planet Earth, if you put them all together, if you weighed them all together. So there's a huge number of tiny critters. Ants are very closely related to bees and wasps. They're in the same classification taxonomically. And we went over mostly honeybees last week, so we're going to talk about ants this week. Ants, here at the Nature Center, we keep three kinds of ants. Two of them are carpenter ant species, and one is a formica ant species. All very common species. Most of them were found. The colonies that we have are found in the course of me doing work here at camp, and clearing areas and stuff that needed to be taken care of, and boom, I ran into a big ant colony, and years ago I would have just wiped them out with some kind of pesticide and all, because that's what we do with ants, right? But I started thinking, it actually came back to my childhood. When I was a kid, we kept ant farms. And we would collect a group of ants and we'd put them in a jar full of dirt, and we'd watch them dig down and make their little tunnels and everything like that. But I could never get the queen. And ants are social insects just like honeybees. And there's a queen that keeps the population going, that lays all the eggs and everything like that. So we could never get that. But 2 years ago, I learned that can actually be done. And I said, wow, wouldn't this be great for the Nature Center? So we gave it a try last year, and you're about to see the fruits of what we did. But so ants are, like I said, social insects. They have a queen, but there's many different kinds of ants. Ants are so specialized. There's ants that live in tiny colonies, and there are ants that live in colonies of millions and millions and millions. There are colonies like the colonies that we have that have one queen with a bunch of workers, and then there is the ants that have multiple queens. They can have up to hundreds of queens, and thus many more workers. You have ants. Ants are like a Game of Thrones type society in some ways. Most ant colonies are started when the colony gets so big that it says, okay, we're going to have to, propagate and spread our species. They send out, the queen lays eggs, and they develop into males and females. And those males and females all fly out at a certain time. And they fly out and they mate, and they land, somewhere. The male dies shortly after mating. And the female lands. Now she's fertilized. She lands, and she'll make a little hole in the ground, and she'll lay a couple eggs eventually. And those eggs will develop. Since ants are insects, they have this basic 3 stages of development: egg, larva, pupa, adult. And they do all that. They raise, a few of them. The workers, they finally get their first workers, and then after that, the workers start caring for the queen. And then the queen, now all she's got to do is lay eggs. Before, she was actually feeding them and taking care of them. The first set, and then they get together. They come out. The colony just continues to get bigger. Now, we're going to see the inside of an ant farm, which is normally invisible to most people. So they, it's usually underground or in wood or something like that, and people don't get to see it. Well, we're going to get to see it today. I've got 3 ant setups behind me here that we're going to look into. Ants can also be farmers. which I thought was just amazing. And we actually have a native species here in Maryland that actually does farming. And what they do is they go out and they collect different things, and they go into the ground, into their colony, and they make a fungus. Sometimes they'll use different plant materials. Leafcutter ants are probably the most famous fungus builders. They actually don't eat the leaves, they bring the leaves back, and the leaves feed the fungus, and the ants eat the fungus. But here we have a native species that does kind of the same thing. They use caterpillar frass, which is caterpillar poop, and some plant material, and they make a hardball size of fungus in a chamber, and they lay their eggs, and they take their larvae, and their larvae feed off of it and everything like that. In general, like bees, ants have two kinds of food. You have your carbohydrate, your sweet food, and you have your protein. We'll get into that a little more with the ants that we have here. They're also herding ants. Ants are ranchers. They actually go out and they find aphids or other insects that feed off of the plant juices, and they actually get sweet fluids from things like aphids to eat. So ants are a super interesting thing, and ant keeping, believe me, is totally cool. So we're gonna come over here, and we're gonna take our first peek into our ant colony. This is a ferruginous carpenter ant colony. The Latin name is Camponotus chromiates, and my Latin pronunciation might be kind of terrible. But in here you see all the ants that are in the nest. Down here you will see clusters of eggs and maybe tiny larvae. It's hard for me to see. And then in different spots you will actually see cocoon pupa there that are developing into ants. Ants are a small worm. You will see, you may see different small larvae and stuff throughout here, and you also see with carpenter ants, you'll also see different size of ants. Carpenter ants are polymorphic, and they have the smallest workers, which are minors, and then we have majors, which are a little bigger, and then we have super majors, which are even bigger than that. And I'm trying to find the queen, and here she is. The queen is right over here. Can you see her in all her glory? That is the queen right there. The biggest ant in the colony is generally the queen. Sometimes the queen is insanely larger than the other ants. But you can see if you look around that that there are different size ants. Here is how we get their water. This is just a test tube with a cotton ball, and the water is behind the cotton ball, and they actually suck the water through the cotton ball. That keeps the water from running anywhere, but they're able to get the moisture. And then here was what we have called the outworld, and this is where the ants come to forage. Now we can't have them foraging all over the place like they normally would, so we keep this, and you can see in those bottle caps there was honey. That's what we use in captivity for their sweet food, and you can see them all sucking up that honey. Now ants will suck that honey up, and then they will pass it around to each individual. They will pass it off to each other through a process which I believe is called trophallaxis. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, but they do that. Bees do a similar thing. They will feed the queen the sugar that they need, and they will also feed protein. Now, the workers and the adult ants will always eat the sweet stuff. They mostly need the sweet stuff. They don't really need the protein. The protein that it can, and we're going to show you. In fact, I guess I might as well do it now. I'm going to take a piece of roach that is dead, even though he's wiggling, and I'm going to put it in there, and you will see that how the ants hunt it down, and you see that really large ant on top of it right now. That's a super major. and they're going to use that roach's body for their protein, and they will feed that to the young ants inside the nest. So most of the protein material goes actually to the larvae of the ants. The adult ants usually use the liquid food. Pretty amazing, isn't it? I could just watch these guys all day. Now they're contained in this setup. There's different ways to make ants escape. Some ants are better at escaping than others. One of the reasons we use carpenter ants is because carpenter ants don't climb so much. They're not as the best of climbers. We lined the tops of this with baby powder, and that makes it slippery enough that the ants can't get out. So, which is very important when you're keeping an ant colony, by the way. But as you can see, they're attacking that to subdue it so that they can use it as nourishment. Working together. Alright, and then over here we have my favorites. These are Chestnut Carpenter Ants. And they get that, it's Camponotus castaneus is the Latin term, and the chestnut comes from the color of red that they are. I guess castaneus means chestnut color. Now this is a different type of ant farm where these are all these three little things are the outworlds, and you can see in one outworld I keep their sweet nectar, and you can see the one ant drinking it from the thing, and then in this middle chamber is where we put protein. And I'm just going to do that real quick in here. Try to do it without them escaping. Okay, and you will see again, they will attack that thing. Now from there's a tunnel down into the chambers below, and you can see with the help of a flashlight, you can see the ants below ground, and this is essentially how they would be operating in the wild, underground. The chambers might not be this big, but you can see there's a pile of brood, what we call brood. You can see different stages of it. You can see one of the ants moving. Some of them. You can come over here, and this is all mostly cocoons. And this ant colony is going to have a population explosion real soon. In fact, I just added this third segment. But these are my favorite ants. These were gotten out of a rock that was in the way of something, and we moved the rock, and they were under it, and I saw the queen, and I was able to grab her. Now, what's really cool about these ants, and you can really see it in some of these ants sometimes, is that, like this one right here, you see how swollen the abdomen is? That is called a replete. And that is actually a storage of food. And this particular colony, the other ones may do it, but I see it mostly in this particular colony that has a lot of repletes that store food. So the ants, that's actually their job, is just to keep food in their abdomen and pass it on to all the other ones. But like I said, this particular colony seems to have a large number of repletes, and I guess that's different to this species, maybe. There's a very famous ant that uses this system of repletes called a honeypot ant, and if you Google that, you can look up and see that their abdomens swell up huge. But you can see some of these, like the ant right there, huge abdomen, the back end, and it's because it's full of nourishment for the other ants, and that's how they store it, actually inside the ants' bodies. Very cool. Okay, it's hard to see the queen in this colony because she hangs upside down from the ceiling, and I don't know which chamber she's in. Oh, there she is. You see her back there? She's the the brownest. It's one the light's right on her. Can you get on her? That is the queen ant right there. That is our queen. Beautiful, beautiful coloring. Very different from all the other ants too. Much darker. And that's actually where they get their name, is the actual queen's color. Very cool. I like it when the ants are cooperative. Okay, and then real quick, we're just going to show you our other colony, and this is also Chromiades. This is the Janice Carpenter Ants, and the queen is right here. She's right there. And you can see, again, you can see over here, you can see different forms of larvae. You can see the different, they're all working inside there. In this outworld, they're just bonkers. They're just this outworld is just bonkers. In fact, before all this stuff happened in the world, we were actually getting a custom-built ant farm to house this colony because it's so prolific. There's so many ants. This colony was actually rescued out of one of our sheds. Howard County Day Camp, of all places, had a bunch of tent poles, square tent poles stored in their shed, and these ants had built a colony in between the tent poles. They didn't even have to like dig. The tent poles actually made the little tunnels and everything for them, and they started moving them, and there was all these ants, and they called me up to kill them, and I said, no, we can't kill them, we're going to collect them. So I actually collected the entire thing, and the queen was almost the last ant that I found. I think there was like 6 ants total left, and the queen was one of those 6, so we got the entire colony, and we were able to save it. Just amazing, amazing creatures. All right. Well, thanks for letting me share my ant colonies with you today. This is kind of a short video, but if you'd like to find out more about ants or more about ant keeping, make some comments below the video and let me know, or write to me directly, BoxTurtle@gscm.org, and I'd be more than happy to explain more or things about keeping ants and about their ecology. All right, until next time, talk to you later.